All right, we've got two more stories to cover tonight. And this one, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, I told you so. I told you this was going to happen, and not me because I've got some crystal ball, but because I've been writing about technocracy. You can see my book back here, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, which you can download for free at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to, theconsciousresistance.com/how-to, free audiobook, free PDF. Spanish, French, German, etc. Find it there. I've been warning people since 2019 and since 2020 when I published this book that technocracy was on the rise, it was on the march, and that we needed to start to think about this. We first learned about things like digital IDs, social credit scores, facial recognition because of the ways they were used during COVID 1984. But myself and plenty of other people were saying, guys, just because the COVID, scamdemic is over doesn't mean that the agenda's over. We still have Agenda 2030. We still have the Great Reset. We still have the Summit of the Future that took place last year and the Pact of the Future. All of these programs are about pushing digital IDs. And that might come in the form of a vaccine passport, or it could be pushed to have, your carbon score. So this is going to help us reduce climate change. The point is that the people that wish they were in control, the so-called powers that wish they were, they are going to push their agenda any different way they can. And as I've been telling you for years, they're going to use entertainment, they're going to use convenience, and of course, they're going to use fear to sell it to the masses. And lo and behold, here we are, and the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, just this last week, reveals digital ID plan after admitting that the Labour Party shied away from illegal immigration concerns. Prime Minister says it's now essential to tackle every aspect of the problem of illegal immigration. And wouldn't you guess it, they're going to use the fears of illegal immigrants and illegal immigration to bring in the digital IDs. Like I said, it might be about fears of pandemics. It could be about fears of climate change or fears of the other, the illegal immigrant. One way or the other, they're going to push this agenda. Sir Keir Starmer has unveiled a plan for a digital ID scheme after admitting that Labour has previously shied away. Quote, you will not be able to work in the UK if you don't have a digital ID. It's as simple as that. He said the scheme would make it, quote, tougher to work illegally in this country, making our borders more secure. It would require anyone starting a job or renting a home to show it on their phone, which would then be checked against a database of those entitled to work and live here. The plan sees digital IDs becoming mandatory for the right to work by the end of this parliament. This is not 10 years from now. This is happening very quickly. The Prime Minister wrote in the Daily Telegraph, let's open up that article today, that it was now, quote, essential to tackle every aspect of the problem of illegal immigration. Quote, there is no doubt that for years, left-wing parties, including my own, did shy away from people's concerns around illegal immigration. It's called the Brit Card. And there's a little, for those watching on screen, there's some examples. You got a gentleman named James Williams. They scan it. Yeah, he has a right to work, permanent. He has a right to rent, permanent. He's over 18. Cool. Here's his driver's license. The one app to rule them all. Workers currently have to show at least one form of physical ID, but there are concerns these can be faked. Here it is. That's all about, trying to make us safe. Prime Minister said the scheme would, quote, offer ordinary citizens countless benefits, making it easier to apply for services such as driver's license, childcare, and welfare. A consultation will look at how the scheme would work for those who may not have a smartphone, such as older people or homeless people. Don't worry, we're going to get them into the banking system, get them in the digital ID, and eventually chipped in no time. French President Emmanuel Macron has repeatedly warned that the lack of ID cards acts as a major pull for channel crossings as immigrants feel they can find work in the black economy, the black market. Guess what? That's where we want to be. That's what agorism is all about. That's what exit and build is all about. There is strength in being outside of their systems. And don't you see the message is stay inside the system, be inside the system, because guess what? Inside the systems, they can control you. They can't control you if you're outside, if you don't need their systems. So if you don't need their work, you don't need their rent, which I get is a big task, but it's one we need to focus on, then you can live outside. And here they even talk about it. Starmer said on Friday's Global Progress Action Summit, quote, it had been too easy for people to come here, slip into the shadow economy, and remain here illegally. It is not compassionate left-wing politics to rely on labor that exploits foreign workers and undercuts fair wages. But the simple fact is that every nation needs to have control over its borders. And I know some people say that. They're like, the illegal immigrants are harming me. They're making me lose wages. You know what? Sorry, but people who operate outside of the system, they're just doing what they have to do. And like I said, I advocate, even if you're not a foreigner in a different country, if you're not an illegal immigrant, work outside of the system as much as you can, deal in cash, try to not report taxes where you can. That's what agorism and exit and build is all about, being in the black and gray markets and building the counter economies, the counter institutions, the parallel systems that these people are afraid of. That's why they're talking about the shadow economy, because they know that they can try to control you within the system, and they want as many people plugged into that system as possible. You have Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy told Sky News, for people who come here and want to work, it will be compulsory to show it, the digital ID. For all other UK citizens, it will be compulsory to have it, but not to show it. People will be able to choose whether they use it or not. Yeah, but how long before they say, well, I can't tell if you're an illegal immigrant or if you're a Brit, so you got to show it no matter what. I mean, this is obviously going in the bad direction. It goes on from there. Let me show a couple more headlines here. This is Keir Starmer writing in the Telegraph. The left ignored immigration fears for too long. It's time to give control back to communities. Only a plan for a patriotic national renewal led by Labour will counter the rise of the populist right, he says. So this is him writing his article calling on the leftists to embrace digital ID. And this is another one. Keir Starmer announces digital ID plan. He hopes the smartphone-based Brit Card will reduce the attractiveness of the UK for potential illegal immigrants. The Brit Card. Where have I heard that before, guys? Oh yeah, that was back in June on the Conscious Resistance Live 156 called You're Falling for the PSYOP Again. And my fourth story of that show, or the third story, was the Brit Card, UK digital ID proposal. So they've been talking about this for months now. It's just finally got to the point where they're actually rolling it out. Here, let me go ahead and open up this link. The Brit Card, a progressive digital ID for Britain, how well-designed digital credentials can help tackle illegal migration. June 2025. So here we are, September, July, August. It only took 3 months from them putting out this white paper that most people didn't even pay any attention to, for them to now announce that it's happening. Digital ID is going to be mandatory. And I've been posting in the UK Freedom Cell. And for those who remember, we did a People's Reset back in the UK. And I've been reaching out to my friends and saying, like, hey guys, what are your plans? What are you going to do to fight this? How are you going to make sure that this doesn't become a mandatory thing? Or if it is mandatory, how are you going to make sure that you can survive and thrive outside of the system? Because to me, that is the key. I don't think we can necessarily stop it from happening. Right now is the time. If you guys are in the UK and you want there to be a mass uprising, you want to prevent this, you need to start organizing protests and marches as big as you saw during COVID 1984. Flood the streets, flood the parliament, go out there and make it clear you're not going to embrace this. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I hope so. I pray so. But what if it doesn't? What if nobody resists this? Like, we don't see much resistance to the facial recognition cameras at the United States airports and elsewhere. Then what do we do? For me, the answer is exit and build. And I want to remind you guys about my 45-day exit and build challenge, which is completely free. You can go to theconsciousresistance.com/EXB. Again, all the links are in the show notes. This was a challenge I did last year about this time, leading up to the US election, and basically trying to tell people there are different ways to survive outside of their systems. We talked about food, we talked about money, we talked about technology, land, education and knowledge, mindset and habits, and how to think holistically about this. And a lot of people are still emailing me and telling me that this has been useful for them and that they're getting something out of learning about exit and build and then applying it to their lives. So how can you use exit and build when digital IDs are becoming mandatory? For one, stop using their banks. I know that's scary for some of you, but stop using their banks. Your money is safer stuffed in a mattress in your home or using a local credit union. But even the credit unions are eventually going to go along with the same digital ID schemes. Deal in cash as much as possible. Try to work jobs where they don't take your money and directly deposit it into a bank. Receive the check to your hands and go to a check cashing place. I don't know in the UK, but I know for sure in the US, there's like these check cashing places. Sometimes they'll charge you 1% or 3% or 5%. And yes, it sucks to have to deal with that. But those places, they might ask for an ID, but they're not asking for digital IDs right now. So that's a step in the right direction. This is what exit and build is about. It's not about becoming completely unplugged from the matrix overnight. It's about taking concrete steps and starting where you're at and then moving in the right direction. So let's say they're going to require digital IDs to work and to rent. And you say, Derrick, I don't know what to do. I don't have the perfect solution, but I know that the answer is to not be dependent on their systems. So find jobs that are willing to work under the table. Find jobs that are willing to pay you in cash. Find community. That's really what it comes down to. That's what I talk about in this, that community is vital and important, guys. I have an eco village that Miriam and I are building out here in Mexico, but we couldn't do this on our own. So we're working with 8 to 10 other households, couples, individuals, families, to build the community that we want, the community of our dreams, because we know that it's going to take effort, it's going to take time, and we can't do it alone. So we have to work together. So I encourage you guys, learn more about the exit and build idea. This is so vital, so important, because digital IDs are coming and we might not be able to stop it, especially if there's not mass resistance. But at the very least, we need to be able to survive and thrive outside of their systems. And to do that, you need to lessen your dependence on those systems yesterday, as quick as possible, as soon as possible, as humanly possible. That's what you need to do. That, to me, is the answer. Mass resistance, non-compliance, and focusing on building parallel systems. You heard them. They're worried about people living in the shadow economy or in the black economy. Well, maybe that's the answer. The answer is to be outside of their systems and outside of their hands, so we're not dependent on the tyrannical, technocratic state that they're building. Of course, if you want to learn more about this, you can go to my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, and download it at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.